Did you actually know how to find good small business bookkeeping services? Oh, and by the way, there's a great list of small business bookkeeping services and what they are further below. It's about halfway. You can scan it in seconds. Meanwhile, here are 5 well-hidden traps people fall for when considering a new bookkeeper. Firstly, as you probably know, a good bookkeeper can make all the difference when it comes to getting things under control fast. But it is very easy to hire the wrong ones. The first one you need to be careful about is their rate. You would think it's obvious, but it really isn't, as many of them will not tell you, transparently at least, how much they charge. Prices can vary between $60 per hour, or, you know, $94 an hour as well, I've seen. In reality, though, you wouldn't know how much they're charging you. For example, if the bookkeeper does not disclose their rate, they can invoice you a lump sum every month, but bookkeeper A charges you $300 and does 5 hours of work, whereas bookkeeper B charges you $300 and only does 3 hours of work. So B is almost doing half what A does, but they're both charging you the same. So um, that's because he could be rushing through things. Because B doesn't tell you the rate, you wouldn't have a clue in this instance. Unless you're an accountant, you can't tell the difference, really, until the ATO is knocking down your doors, asking for way more money than you can afford. We're not going to mention obvious things, for example, checking reviews, reference checks, interviewing skills, not hiring referrals, and so on. Most of this you probably do already. Secondly, you gotta hire for attitude. Most people that offer bookkeeping services are actually accountants that for some reason did not want to get their CPA or tax agent license done. However, they're still accountants and a rather taciturn breed. They're not very chatty or forthcoming with information on their own. Usually they need to be prodded to reveal anything extra. They love just performing a service quietly in the back office, and that's a problem. Here's why. You don't know what you don't know. That is even truer when it comes to accounting, tax, bookkeeping, and compliance as well. It is a very counterintuitive subject matter if you think about it. So how are you going to know what questions to ask this bookkeeper if you don't know what you don't know? The answer is you probably won't know when to push and ask for more information. And you could have a gut feel, but if your bookkeeper is not a very chatty one, that also means major issues go unnoticed, as the dull bookkeeper is all about efficiently lodging the BAS or coding the bank reconciliation, and that's a real shame. For example, if you don't provide any information on an important financial transaction, your garden variety bookkeeper simply ignores that and processes whatever paperwork you have actually provided. He or she won't even mention anything. So what can you do? You need to fix the problem before it even arises. Our bookkeepers are chatty. They have to be. Now, I think you agree with us too that that's the case. They also need to be proactive. For example, ours were reading about grants and cash flow boosts and telling their customers all about it, and many other countless wins during the year. If they identify these issues ahead of time, you actually have a chance to fix the issues or grab the particular opportunity. Otherwise, you never really had a chance to start with. You weren't even in the game. That is arguably a weird tip, but that a proactive and chatty bookkeeper is a truly rare gem. In fact, we only expand our team when we come across one, promptly refusing new clients if we don't have capacity instead of hiring the wrong ones, like most others providing small business bookkeeping services do. Next one, you hire for attitude. Again, once you have identified 2 or 3 equally skilled ones, this time look for people that are of a genuinely, I always struggle with that word, genuinely helpful nature. You know the type. You are a tourist in a foreign country with a map open in your hands. This fellow will jump across the street to come and help you find that tucked away museum somewhere. That's the fellow we hire. She is genuinely helpful in any situation. You can usually tell during the interview. Information is volunteered even when you don't ask for it. Again, that is the kind of information you can use to preempt entirely avoidable financial disasters if you find someone helpful, they can give you the heads up. Next again, Again, hire for attitude. Now, this is the weirdest of all of them. Uh, Although some of you may already think that we've covered some pretty weird characteristics of bookkeepers. Hire for guilt. That's right, guilt. We learned this trick from one of the best business coaches on the planet, Brendan Bouchard. It is well worth following his advice. Weird? Yeah, sure. We thought so too, at first. But ask prospective staff these questions at the interview. When did you screw up something? What did you do about it? Why? All bookkeepers screw up at one point or another. They are making thousands of micro financial decisions every day. Even at 0.0001% statistically, they are still making mistakes. All of them. Why look for guilt? You want to find out whether or not they experience guilt when they screw up. If they do, they will bend over backwards for you and go beyond fixing their mistakes. That is, you will get value for money. It's a good trick. We can't make a list like this without mentioning experience, obviously, but that is an obvious one, and we're not supposed to dwell too much on the obvious one. But here it is, number 5 with a bang. As a business owner, unless you're an accountant or have done the books of dozens of businesses before, you will rarely have the right experience to gauge the skills and experience of another bookkeeper. You can only try your best here. At the risk of sounding self-serving, that is probably the main reason we have a good business, because no matter what you do on this one, you cannot do well. As accountants, we can tell when a bookkeeper is experienced or not by asking a few situational and technical questions. By gauging the candidate's answers, we can make an informed decision. But it doesn't have to be all doom and gloom. You can simply contact us and ask us about our small business bookkeeping services. Bookkeeping is not the most exciting part of your business, right? So let's face it, when you started your business, the first sales were very exciting. Doing the paperwork, maybe not so, particularly if you were never too keen on number crunching to start with. Eventually, this gets people to look to others to provide them small bookkeeping services, which is probably why you're here listening to me talk about all this stuff. Small businesses also have compliance requirements on top of mere bookkeeping. Unfortunately, if there is one thing that is drier than bookkeeping, it's compliance. It is very difficult to get excited by anything tax related unless you're an accountant or a bookkeeper. Let's have a look at what a bookkeeper has to actually do in a small business in simple terms. Please bear in mind that to effectively manage a small business, you have to have some kind of basic understanding of bookkeeping for small businesses. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. However, if this is really not your thing, this can be very alienating and frustrating. Say you're a creative person, or you're more excited by watching your sales grow, or even that you actually love the feeling you get when you make a sales in your business more than anything. People with bookkeeping skills will stand in awe of folks like you. However, if you're like that, that usually means you're not too enthused by the prospect of learning about number crunching or compliance. The point of this page is not to turn you into an instant bookkeeping prodigy. Far from it. We don't like making unsubstantiated claims, and when you click on the link below and look at the page, you'll see it's the same. But we can at least point you in the right direction. If you're aware of the basics, at least you will know what you don't know. You'll have a better grasp of whether or not you're meeting your compliance obligations and whether or not numbers are well put together, whether they're indicative of your profitability or hiding some dramatic secrets. Let's have a look at some tips, shall we? Businesses are hilariously unpredictable. A good bookkeeper and good record keeping can make things feel more certain and tangible. And that's important. 3 things you need to know about bookkeeping and record keeping is, firstly, what records do you need to keep? Then, how to keep them? And then also, how long do you need to keep the records for? Let's define the activity. I think you will find this helpful. It's like an ongoing control process. Financial transactions need to be recorded, they need to be organized. Once that has been accomplished, you actually know how much money or profit you generated. That's kind of like it. Ever ask how much profit and get a blank stare in return? Or worse, do you actually know which areas of the business to expand to 2x your profit, for example? You need really clear and reliable financial information to make these decisions. For instance, many have gotten themselves into loans they thought they could afford because their financial reports were not put together properly. That is, they read the wrong information and made the wrong call. These transactions used to be handwritten on pages. That's where that's the stuff that was then bound into books, if you want to call them that. And as the businesses grew in size and complexity, and the books got bigger, and then the terms became the term became known and coined as bookkeeping. Sometimes the two terms bookkeeper and accountant are used interchangeably. However, if we are holding fast to these definitions, then the whole accounting process needs to be split in more than one process. Bookkeeping will be more involved with the data collecting and coding part of that process. Accounting, on the other end, would be more concerned with compliance and interpretation of that data, analyzing it. Bookkeeping used to be a fairly manual process, for example, involving cash books or sales journals, if you've seen any of those. Nowadays, most of this is done via software. So you can see experts in Zero Accounting or QuickBooks accountants that do that. For example, there's some of the activities bookkeepers will focus on: creating invoices, sending invoices, making payments, collecting overdue amounts, if you don't use a debt collector, that is. Some account management tasks. Some of them do payroll. Many times that is outsourced or the owner takes care of that. Your accountant, and maybe oversimplifying a little bit here, your accountant would deal more with interpreting the financial records and filing your taxes. So on the tax end of things, usually, and some business advice here and there. Best can be done by either. Certain financial transactions or mistakes can go bump in the night. Accountants will then process adjustments to reflect what was supposed to happen initially. Also, certain odd transactions, for example, depreciation, will require the input and journals from accountants. Certain businesses take care of everything too. For example, our business provides both accounting services and small business services, small business bookkeeping services and taxes as well. While some of our customers prefer to have everything under one roof, and that way they're able to get answers from all their questions from just that one point of contact. All those will want to have their own bookkeepers and accountants, and they just use us to fill the gap. So, but there's another version of this too. In this one, the bookkeeper starts out with a business that then grows to an enormous scale, with the bookkeeper training accordingly to keep up. In this instance, the bookkeeper starts also doing more and more of the accounting tasks. A lot of times they'll run payroll, or they may even start getting involved with HR a little bit. So these larger businesses then simply get the taxes filed by an external firm. We also have a few of those. Now, there are many permutations and combinations of these sort of arrangements with all our clients. However, all share the same aspect of secrecy and confidentiality, which is really important, right? So furthermore, many of the owners of the businesses get their family members and their returns done with us too. And again, that has to be done with clear separations between all of it. Everything regardless gets the same level of effort and accuracy though. Now, accuracy is the name of the game here. It is supremely important because you, the business owner, need to know how much money you're making. You need to know when you're spending more than you're making. It's great to know ahead how much money you're going to make too. That helps with planning future expenses or expansions. You can identify holes in your cash flow miles ahead, so you can do something about it. Managing payments to suppliers potentially, or collecting more from customers on time. Most think fraud or major financial distress can't happen to them. That's another one, because it is unpleasant to contemplate the opposite. Not because it doesn't happen, but good books and controls help avoid all that. Afterwards, nothing's more unpleasant after all than that feeling of incompetence or being the dumb one, after something tragic happens to a business, especially because of just poorly kept books. A good set of books means we don't charge you more for your tax returns either. So for example, we're doing your books and you come to us to do your tax returns. The tax returns will cost you less, or if you have a really amazing bookkeeper and they're doing a really good job, again, your tax return will cost you a lot less. That's because we spend less time on your tax returns and scrutinizing everything, because we can see it's been done properly. Not to mention, if someone wants to invest money in your business, it is a breeze for them to do so because they can see the records are kept properly and they'll trust that business more. Same thing goes for lenders too. So how do you then keep good records? The ATO prefers electronic record keeping, so that's what we encourage everyone to do. Besides, most, if not all, of this accounting process is software driven. This has become much more blatant since the STP implementation. There may be certain instances where you're required to keep hard copy of legal documents, by the way. Also, we've noticed that some clients like to keep hard copies of company constitutions and trust deeds and a few other documents like that. But you don't need a fancy scanner or to be an electronics wizard. No need for hiring an expensive Gandalf of the IT realm. You can simply use your phone to take a picture of your receipts. As long as it is fairly clear and you took the right picture, and it is a true likeness of the original, ATO and other compliance entities are more accepting of this practice. Some of our customers only keep pictures of their receipts now. If you do decide to go for IT wizardry here, or want to call us for it to do it for you, Xero has some powerful integrations such as HubDoc, that's HUBDOC, where you can take a picture of a document. Your accounting software takes care of the rest. Yes, it does feel like wizardry the first time you use it. Technology in this area is getting more and more advanced. I think they're using AI to code the bank recs and all that now. True, I'm not making this up. As a further side note, please always have backups for your documents. ATO and others are not lenient, and you don't want to get spanked by the ATO when your documents get lost and all your computers get hacked. The responsibility for providing documents or financial transactions which still stays squarely basically on your shoulders no matter what. Now, I think it's a sentiment shared by other accountants that this is necessarily fair in all instances, but that is the law though. So having said that, with all the options to back up on-site, off-site, and in the cloud, it is rather hard to get completely hacked, which could be why the ATO has that sort of stance. You have to act. One of the requirements that you have is you need to be able to access all of this at all times, and also you need to be able to have all the passwords and to be in total control of what happens with all the documents you store to. Think of it like the airport in your suitcase. You know how they ask you whether you are in possession at all times of your suitcase? It's a bit like that, and for probably similarly prosecutable reasons. If you recall, that's when all payroll now requires software. If you have employees, there's no way around it. There is even talk of a phase 2 for the STB. That's another advantage of using our small business bookkeeping services. We keep you up to date with all changes that come up. For example, the director ID, ASIC matters that just came up shortly, not so long ago. Here's a tip: some software are better than others with payroll. People always ask which software to go for. So Xero is a bit less intuitive and clunkier than QuickBooks or Sage. MyOb still needs some tightening up its bolts, I reckon. Let's get back to our accounting process anyway. So now you have a chart of accounts, you got your bookkeeping software, you're ready to rumble. Let's see. So you've got each of your invoice and all the financial transactions that must be coded in the right accounts. If you get this wrong, then an accountant usually steps in with journals when reviewing your accounts before lodging tax returns. So that's kind of like how that all fits in there in that picture. And that is also a scenario you want to avoid because the accountant will charge you about 3 times as much as a bookkeeper. So an hour's work with the bookkeeper will set you back anything between $50 to $80 an hour. Accountant will charge anything between $160 to $250 an hour to fix the mistakes. So you do need to get the right sort of bookkeeper. So which brings us to the next point: what sort of bookkeeping should a small business do? So if you're a micro business, you may in rare instances have an option to have simplified bookkeeping. However, that can cost you more later. So you got to be a bit careful with that. Unless you're really experienced, you're a trained accountant, you will make mistakes. Even we make mistakes that we pick up later on when we review our own work. So if you're doing your own books when you submit it to your tax accountant, imagine what will happen. They have to review and fix the numerous mistakes that have been done, and their rate is quite expensive. You may still be ahead. Say you spend 100 hours to do your bookkeeping yourself instead of using our services at $60 per hour. That saves you about $6,000. However, a tax accountant will review the mistakes and spend hours doing so, probably costing you $1,600 or so. Then the accountant will charge you another $1,600 to fix the issues. So you did save $3,000, but you really worked at $330 per hour, really. So $30 per hour is not exactly a rate that will get you ahead. The real question is then, would that time have been better spent doing something else that could move the needle? Also, to be able to even do the bookkeeping, you'll need to spend anything between 50 to 100 hours getting trained on how to do it. A lot of people think they know how to do it, but then they leave a bunch of mistakes. So you need to do some training before you can do it. A few things to consider when making those sort of delegation duties, though. If you're such a small business and a sole trader, you may also get away with single entry bookkeeping. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying to use a spreadsheet and record all your income on one tab, your expenses on another. But the genius of the accounting system lies in double entry accounting. So that's what accounting is really works on. So whoever invented double entry, that's Luca Pacioli, I think was his name, was a true genius if you think about it. I mean, how you come up with stuff like that and it just works. Anyway, that's what ensures your books are always balanced, and second layer of controls ensuring transactions are coded to the right accounts too, and you don't need to worry about the complexity of your bookkeeping here. This is all done in the software, by the way, unless you're using cash books, which I don't recommend. QuickBooks and Xero seem to be the inexpensive go-to for most small businesses when it comes to that. However, if you do decide to stay the manual course, you do have some advantages. With manual, it's cheap to get going, simple to use, almost impossible to have duplicated transactions, almost zero physical storage space requirements, and it's kind of like a, if you look at oh, hang on a tick, I've skipped ahead. So when you look at the digital one, that's the one, sorry, that will have almost zero physical storage space, not the manual one. Most of your calculations will be automated in the software, and it's easier to generate reports. It's overall a more elegant bookkeeping solution overall too. Easier to back up if it's digital, protected against fires and theft, mostly anyway. Even if you're not using a software, you can still use a spreadsheet, which is better than all paper-based, I think. Software like Xero and QuickBooks, Mario and a few others out there too, present other advantages too. They're easier to automate, recording many of your transactions by themselves. They minimize mistakes. The accounts are updated by themselves and balanced. GST is done and dusted. Just press a button and the whole thing comes out. Financial statements productions is automated as well, and they come out in the format that lenders like to read. Invoices are produced faster too. You just press a button, put the number in, and it goes and gets emailed directly to whoever it needs to go to. There are two things. First, make sure your software is standard business reporting compliant, SBR. And one other thing, Amazon accounting and other large platforms may have their own preferred accounting packages as well, so talk to your accountant before jumping on any one of those. Okay, if you come on bookkeeping tasks for small businesses, what do they usually do? Payroll, bank reconciliations, accounts receivable, accounts payable. Here's a bit of a disclaimer for all the advice that we usually give in our videos. It's of a general nature, as you know. We don't know your particular financial situation at all, so it's kind of hard for us to give us, customized advice. So you shouldn't really just listen to this video and go and make decisions. You need to talk to an accountant first. Reach out to us if you need some more help as well. So there's another option. Obviously, you can just ditch the laptop and grab some hot and buttery popcorn instead. Sit back and watch the show and give us a call. We can offer you that peace of mind, and we can, give you the best of all small business bookkeeping services and make it all happen to you. So how do you do that? You can either click the links below to reach out, or you can just call us. Here's the number there.